Welcome, it's your boy Vega Bomber, and welcome to Vega Bomber Land. Well, you know, if I'm in front of a camera, that means I'm going to talk about a movie. And so the movie or the film that I've recently seen is a film called Hitsville, The Making of Motown. So this film was directed by Gabe and Ben Turner. It originally came out in August 24th, 2019, so it was pre-pandemic. And I'm actually surprised that I hadn't seen this film until now, especially with how much I love music. So this film, Hitsville, The Making of Motown, is all about the architect and then of course the acts that he signed. And the architect was a guy named Berry Gordy. So this is a guy who was a shoeshine boy who then eventually worked in a Ford motor plant in Detroit. And from that, he builds the largest hit-making record company of all times. That right there ought to be enough to make you want to see this, because you got to wonder, how did this guy, what was it in what he learned, what he picked up on doing menial jobs that helped him in his mind put together something that he was willing to put all his money, blood, sweat, and tears into to make sure that it worked. And not only did Motown work, but they are a juggernaut. They had tons of hit. They even had their own Motown sound, if you will. I mean, people wanted to come work. And now think about this now. Motown, you're talking about Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, the Supremes featuring Diana Ross, Martha and the Vandrells, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Ashford and Simpson, Jackson 5, which includes Michael Jackson, right? And all these folks, all these particular recording acts, all had at least one #1 hit, at least one. But they had multiples. And it almost was like this place was like a factory, like the factory that Berry Gordy found himself working in that they came in, when artists came in, they got hooked up with producers and writers. And next thing you know, how to hold yourself on stage, the presence, and how to produce. They all got to learn all the different facets of recording. It wasn't just go in there, get in a box, sing your heart out. They all got to learn the business side of it and what it meant to be a person who's delivering all the stuff as well. And then, of course, the lyrics, the talents. I mean, Stevie Wonder at the age of 10, being able to play the drums, the bongo, also able to play the harmonica at age 10. He's this genius. And then you get Michael Jackson later, and then that's just the young talent. Look at Smokey Robinson, one of the smoothest voices ever. And then you talk about Marvin Gaye, another smooth voice. And you talk about Stevie Wonder again in his older life, what he's produced. So this is just one of the best things you could ever. This is a good time written all over it. And you just have to sit down. So Hitsville, it showed up on HBO Max. That's where you can see it now. Originally, it was released in 2019 on Showtime, but now it's on HBO Max. So if you're wondering where I need to see it on, that's where I can see it. So what does it cover? Well, it covers the beginnings, the humble beginnings, and it shows how Berry Gordy had the idea, what he was basing it off of. The architect was architecting, if you will. And then how they acquired talent. And then how did you know these people were talented? And then how do you get the best out of talent? So you get to see them organically just building songs out of the thin air that they're like, that's not a hit. And then they pushed themselves until they said, no, the song is a hit. Or some things they thought was a hit right off the bat, and they were right, even though it hadn't been out there. So there was just something about success that was flowing in that area there in Detroit in 1958, right? Because they just knew that they had something, but not only did they know they had it, they knew how to put it together, and then they knew how to sell it, and they knew how to market it. So Hitsville, if you can just think of any of these songs, you know they've been used in movies as soundtracks. They've been used in commercials. We all know My Girl, you know, and My Guy, and we know Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. If you don't, Google it, right? We know about what's going on with Marvin Gaye. We know Stevie Wonder singing Everybody Say Yeah and Superstitious. And so not only do you have that, you have rare footage of them performing these songs and some of the TV shows that they were on back then that I wasn't around to see, and see how they performed it as well as just sing it or create it. So all of that's fantastic. And then, of course, you have modern musicians and producers speaking about it. So Dr. Dre talks about his influence, right? Oprah talks about her influence. Johnny Legend talks about the influence that Motown had. And then, of course, Jamie Foxx a very talented individual as well, talks about it. So you've got some new talking about the old, and then you got the old showing you how they just came in and they just owned it. And this was from a guy who was a shoeshine boy who eventually was working at an assembly line at the Ford Motor Company in Detroit. And this type of person was capable of something like Hitsville. And to this very day, we still sing those songs. We still know them. We still know the first couple of bars when we hear it, what's about to happen next. And don't get me started on how many people have karaoke'd these songs. So it's a good time. I recommend it. Go watch it. You might want to buy it. You'll watch it several times because the story is told well. The clips are intercut well. And then just the stories are just interesting as to what they had to do back then in the 50s to just try to maintain normalcy with all the strife that was going on in the world, and just sing. And then, of course, just dealing with each other, right? Because they were a family, and family gets together and family has a good time. And sometimes families can get on your nerves too, but it's all in there. So do yourself a favor. Go watch Hitsville, the making of Motown. I think you'll be thoroughly enjoy it. I think you will thoroughly enjoy what comes out on that screen and what comes out of your speakers. It's Vega Bomber, and I'm out.